Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always is...
I do like you, but not when you act like a jerk. Eddie of Edward's Truth.
And that's the story of our relationship.
Yeah, right? I say it all the time. I should create a hashtag.
Yeah. Friday the 13th, part 3. Released August 13th, 1982.
Yeah.
Welcome to Friday the 13th. Is this the only... No, we had a Friday the 13th already this year. I think it was in January.
Part 2.
Yeah, because that's when we covered, because we only do Friday the 13th when there's a Friday the 13th on the horizon. So
unless it's Freddy versus Jason.
Well, that's...
Case, it's not a Friday the 13th.
It's not,
that's just a movie that has Jason in it.
It's just a movie.
That's just a movie.
It's just a movie. And this is a movie as well. So yeah, let's just get right into it because I feel like our energy is already off.
Okay. So what do you want to know, Zach?
What do you think of this one?
Oh God. I mean, long story short, I didn't really like it, and then I really liked it, so it rose in my rankings. And now that I've watched it again, I like it, but I don't like it as much as I thought I liked it.
Yeah.
How about you, Zach?
Yeah, because I still remember like my first experience with all these movies because I like did all the Paramount marathon and then the New Lines, which I don't. Jason X wasn't out yet, so it was just the Paramounts and then Jason Goes to Hell. And I feel like there was a switch, speaking of energy being off, there was a switch in energy after 1 and 2 coming into 3. And I really loved 3 because I feel like it still kind of like hit all the right notes, at least from what we expected. But now when I kind of watch it again, it just like, did it though? But the thing is like this is not, like I think out of the first 5, this is probably my least favorite. But I still love this movie, and I still think it's in the top half of the Friday the 13th movies. Make of that what you will. But yeah, I'm very much like you. Like I kind of like flip-flop back and forth on this one. Of just like you have to be in the mood for it, and I feel like at this point I have more fun just making fun of it than I actually do enjoying it. I mean,
it's quotable as hell. Like it is, and it's not forgettable. Like it's not boring. It's nothing like that. But I re-listened to our first 2 pods we did for the first movie and for the second movie for Cherry Picker. Yeah. Just so I wouldn't repeat any stories or anything like that. Just to kind of, and I'll just kind of remember like the headspace you were in, the headspace I was in. Yeah. Did we say anything about this movie and stuff like that? And one thing I will say, particularly with the second movie, that we talked a lot about that movie. There was a lot to mine. We kept going into like the characters. Well, especially I did.
We talked for 3 hours.
We were like talking about their backstories and their psyches and their motivations and their histories and their the bonds they formed and what must their history have been together and like that kind of stuff. This one, it ain't that deep. It's. I think the jump across the country from the East Coast to the West Coast, I can feel certainly just from the style of acting, from the actors. Yeah. You and I have discussed this off pod before. It's the first 2 movies feel like, kids who do independent films and off-Broadway plays, and this one feels like kids who do sitcoms, and have their hands on their hips and say, like whatever the name is that they have to say, but we'll say Shelly for lack of another name right now. Just Shelly, It's just, I always think about what the guy who played Roy in part 5, he wanted to research the franchise because he hadn't seen any of the movies before, so he saw 1 and 3. He couldn't get a hold of 2, so he saw 1 and 3 back to back. And when he saw 1, he was like, "Oh, it's kind of got like a nice indie, like handmade, low budget, charm to it, and it's a beautiful movie. Okay, I like this." And he watched part 3, and he says, "Oh, what happened?" So
yeah.
So I guess he was game for anything because he still took the part
Yeah.
in part 5. But yeah, I mean, it still has a warm place in my heart. I agree with you. There are worse Friday the 13th movies, and there are worse slasher movies for
Yeah.
sure. So.
Did you watch it in 3D on this most recent?
No, because
assuming you
I was
watched
worried
it,
I wouldn't be able. Yeah, I was worried I wouldn't be able to take notes if I watched it in 3D. How about you?
I've never seen. I don't think I've ever seen it in proper 3D. Like I know that I had a DVD one time that came with the little like flimsy glasses, but I didn't find it like effectively worked because I don't know. Like I feel like there's like specialty glasses you need, and I don't think that those were it. But I don't like. I have the Scream Factory box set, and that is 3D compatible. But I don't have a 3D television, and they don't make those anymore. And it just feels like it was just sort of like already a little too antiquated for its time. But from what I understand, this is a movie that is best enjoyed, best appreciated if you're watching it in like true 3D of like how it was originally intended. Because really, like when you break this movie down, because this is Steve Miner again directing from part 2. He also did H2O, Halloween H2O, and there's such a noticeable difference, like other than like the jump of just like the location and the actors, that it feels like with this movie they're primarily concerned with the technical aspects of it, and in that regard, story is kind of put on the back burner, and that's, I mean, ironic to say for Friday the 13th that a story would be put on the back burner because these movies don't really have all that much story as it is. Yeah. But I still feel like, you know, like part 1 and part 2, there's so much more, like you said, even like the backstories of characters that you could headcanon and things like that. But like they are so much more developed, where here it was just, a lot of it is just setups for these 3D gags and I guess like suspense that's not really suspenseful or scary, and there's just not a lot going on. It's just little like jokey character moments and bad dialogue, and I love it for it, but it's not part 2. It's not part 2.
No, or part 4 or part 1. But what I will say, someone did put a laugh track to a number of scenes on YouTube. I don't know if the video is still available, but it was on, I think, 12 years back or something. Okay. And I remember it was kind of eerie how well it played with the laugh track. Like, I mean, I said, like, there's a very sitcom kind of acting, but like full on Shelly, like being told by Andy, like, come on, just be yourself. And he says, would you be yourself? And he pushes the mask up. If you look like this, you know, and it worked. Like it. And then when Vera's fighting in Spanish with her mother inside, and she comes, and she's like, okay, let's go. Where's my date? And then there's a laugh, and I'm just kind of like, oh my god, like I would love to go to actually a 3D screening of this movie with a laugh track that accompanies it. You know, that might even work too. For some of the
I think it would get like distracting after a while, but it would also it would fit in with it. Like you probably would stop noticing it, maybe too.
Well, maybe not throughout the whole thing, not like after every line or anything like that. Like let Chris Higgins have her, you know, her speech and everything like that. No laughs about that, but maybe laugh when the car lights.
Well, that could be like you know how on like sitcoms when they would have like sort of like, this is a very special episode thing, and something like major would happen, but then the audience would, instead of a laugh track, they would all like gasp. And
yeah, exactly, yeah,
and then and then something funny would happen again, and they'd start laughing.
exactly. The car lights go out, and everybody's back to shenanigans.
Yeah,
but I will say this particular screening, one of the things that jumped out at me, because I mean, I say there's not a lot to mind, but there are still things that I noticed that I don't think I noticed before, and it was just the exchange between Andy, Chris, and Debbie. When they're all together, I think it's the first time they're walking away from the van to go get Vera, and they're talking about sex, and
Sex,
Andy's just
sex,
kind of like,
sex.
well,
That's
what?
all you guys ever
Yeah.
think about.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what else are you supposed to think about on a weekend out in the woods or something? And I don't remember exactly what Debbie says. It's something to the extent of like like shut up, like she's trying to hush him from like talking about sex like so flippantly. And then Chris is just kind of like oh, relax, guys, I'll be okay. Like almost like they know,
She's
they both
planting
know
the seeds of like whatever it was that happened.
even though she doesn't know, but it's
Yeah.
like, but I don't know, the fact that Debbie shushes Andy, I'm like shocked that I'm like, so does Andy know? And does Chris know that Andy? Oh my gosh, this is odd. This is very.
Shelley doesn't know though. It's basically
Shelley
it's the
obviously
Friends
doesn't
episode.
know
It's
anything.
like they don't know that we know that they know that we know. It's like who all knows about Chris's attack?
Oh god.
Before we like really get into the characters though, do you have a premise?
Yeah.
Because let's get.
I mean, I don't have one set up, so I just want to kind of like wing it, like I do sometimes when I'm
Please
just
do, yeah.
fed up. All right, so there's this recap at the beginning, and we watch basically 6 minutes of nearly total, last week on Friday the 13th, and then we get the 3D titles, and then we basically meet these store owners, and they get killed, and then this busload of kids and 2 adults. Basically going into the woods. They're seeing the aftermath from the last movie, but they're going out to like party and whatever together. And then these bikers, and there's bad news, and there's gas being siphoned, and it doesn't ever, the bikers never get anything because they get killed. And then the kids one by one start getting killed too. And then the girl who was, she doesn't know exactly what happened, but she tells this guy who's trying to sleep with her madly that the reason why she's kind of like weird is that she fell asleep and a guy, attacked her with a knife, and she passed out and she woke up in her bed and she doesn't know what happened. Her parents never told her nothing. So she's like, then she sees this guy and she's like, what? You can't be alive. And she kills him a bunch of times. And then mother comes out of the river and pulls her down, and she's Friday the 13th Part 3.
I don't think I've ever seen you have like as little enthusiasm for doing one of those.
It probably lasted longer than any of my other premises.
Yeah, you put more
too,
effort
so.
into it, and it was just like I am not having.
Well, it's not a premise. I basically gave like a full synopsis.
Yeah.
Like from beginning to end.
And you made it up on the fly.
You're
too.
welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome, folks.
I mean,
Have fun,
yeah,
Boy
you're
Cried
not
Wolf.
you're not far off.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. So, what do you think of when you think of this movie?
Well, before we get into that, I do want to.
Yeah.
You mentioned Boy Cried Wolf. So yes, our editor Boy Cried Wolf. I would like to say thank you to him for especially for having to deal with what all that was.
What I just did.
And also, I would like to welcome some new Patreon supporters of mine and of the podcast. So welcome to Austin Sanner, Austin, no last name, and Autumn Joe Staggs. So welcome aboard. Two Austins and an Autumn. Yeah, all A's. Triple A's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No trademark.
No trademark. And if you would also like to become a Patreon supporter, you will get early access to all of our podcast episodes. You will also get access to the Cherry Picker After Dark, which is a bonus episode that we do every month.
Yeah.
And we don't have an update on what October's is going to be yet. It'll be something special though. So stay tuned for that. But all contributions are greatly appreciated, and they go towards feeding us and making us happy and sane, if you can believe it. So once again, thank you to everyone who supports us.
Yeah, awesome.
So with that said, Friday the 13th. I mean, this is one that I want to go through scene for scene as best as we can.
Oh boy.
because there's a lot of things that aren't really like connected, but I don't want to miss. And I think like the first thing that I really wanted to, well, actually the first thing before the first thing, because you mentioned the previously on Friday the 13th, the flashback, and I don't know if we mentioned this in part 2, but I think this sort of confirms that everything that happened with him crashing through the window and Muffin was a dream for Ginny. Right. Is that what you make of it? Because he just sort of gets up and walks away, unless he was getting up to go.
He still could have gotten up to go perform the last scene in Amy Steele's memory, and then he.
I just think that
because I mean he also went and shaved, apparently, like
his whole head, his whole
head and face. Yeah, he's bald.
Yeah,
bald now, and it's just been a day. So
yeah, and that's his look.
That what you
like
will.
I mean, not his look from now on, but I think not until like Jason Goes to Hell when he starts to get those like scraggly wisps. But and that's after after he becomes a corpse. But
and a little boy again.
And the evolution, the biological evolution of Jason Voorhees it's very confusing.
Yeah, don't try to make any sense of it, folks. Just sit back. You just
gotta go with it. So yeah, I mean, my headcanon is that it was a dream, and it would make sense because we know that Muffin was dead anyway. And honestly, I didn't care all that much about Muffin anyway, so I'm happier to have Paul alive than Muffin alive, if that makes sense, because I feel like this means that Paul's alive.
Okay.
Who knows? I don't know. Even the continuity is weird because she's watching Edna, the one with the convenience store wife.
Yeah.
Because she's watching a news report with like footage from part 2, and it's just there was X number of bodies, and I couldn't even be bothered to do the math to know if
I know 8 bodies. I remember them saying there were 8 bodies that they had found.
Okay, because there was.
We'll do the math.
But Alice was like, there's like her skeleton in the shrine. So does that count as a body?
Is a skeleton still a body? I don't know.
How would the news report it? Yeah. Anyway, that's the previously on. We don't need to delve too much into it. But
right.
Yeah, the first thing I wanted to really comment on was the amazing theme score. I have the vinyl album from Waxford right here that I'm holding up. But the disco Harry Manfredini.
That's amazing.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, synthy and so different. Like just but I mean, and really leans into, I guess, the tone of the movie also. Like, Harry Manfredini's no fool. Like, he knows kids are coming, they're eating popcorn, they want to get scared maybe, but they also want to have fun, and they're probably more likely to have fun with this one than get scared. But
yeah. And I mean, like,
there were things about it that were scary when I was a kid, but not anymore.
And as always, like, Harry Manfredini is the standout of all of these movies. I mean, other than Amy Steele in part 2. But yeah, Harry Manfredini, like, the score. And especially, like, with this theme song, because he does go back to, like, all the traditional cues from there on after. Because I don't think we hear the theme song again until... Did it play over the end credits? I want to say.
Yeah, I think it did,
Yeah. But yeah, nowhere in the movie is this like actually repeated or any kind of like variation.
Actually,
in the convenience store.
Yes, in the other convenience store. We don't take no food stamps or whatever. Oh God, we'll get into that when we get there. I suppose. But let's talk about this store, Harold and Edna. I feel like we're at a turning point from the get-go with this movie. And not just because the shooting style is heavily transposed, shall we say, from what we acclimated to with the first and second movie, even though those were 2 separate directors, and this is the same one as the last one. Yeah. The 3D camera really put a wrench in their ability to focus on other things within the filmmaking. Everything was about, like, how are we going to get this object in the foreground so, the audience has something to... Because I remember in the 80s, I was there with the Captain EO of it all in the Jaws 3D, and all people wanted to do was reach their hands up and try to grab the thing off of the screen. We were so stupid, and it was great. People don't do that anymore. But so, but I feel like aside from that, we move into what I like to kind of call the gross era of, or at least maybe the gross space. I feel like we fluctuate from movie to movie, but this movie is largely gross. Like it was rustic, I think, and maybe sometimes, naughty or bawdy or dirty or like whatever, but it gets downright filthy. I feel like between like Harold with the rabbit in the produce and eating the nuts and taking a bite out of fruit and putting it back, and then the racing to the restroom after the rattlesnake eats the bunnies, and we have to watch him on the toilet and everything. It's just unsavory. And in a way, Alfred Hitchcock would never dare, go this behind the curtain, as it were, for the characters, like seedy underbelly lives. Or
I mean, wouldn't he? I mean, he was the first one to show a flushing toilet. On film.
Yeah, but it wasn't flushing piss or excrement. It was full on flushing paper, shredded paper.
But that's the thing. It's just like these auteurs. They always have to outdo themselves. Like, what is the next the more crazy, cringy thing that we could do? And
so that's why Steve Miner wanted a close up of roadkill before he, got panned up back to the van.
I guess.
Why we got an eyeball in the foreground. Oh dear God! Don't get me started. But or even just like when fucking Harold eats the fish food, I'm just like, really? I mean, again, I'm not turned off. I'm not like, oh, this is gross, I'm gonna turn off the movie. But I am just sitting there with my arms crossed, going like, come on, movie better. But what about you with Harold and Edna? What do you make of them?
Well, on this particular viewing, I was like watching them because I feel like these are young actors, but they were playing much older.
Especially her.
Well, I would say him too, because it looked like he was like maybe wearing some sort of padding or something, but he definitely both of them definitely looked like they were probably like in their like early 30s playing playing 40s.
I bet they're both incredibly pleasant and friendly people, and they pulled a Betsy Palmer again, like with the layers, like we talked about in the first pod.
Yeah.
Then putting like a turtleneck, and then a shirt, and then another shirt, and a sweater, and like all that to bulk her up. Maybe that was the goal, to make them look more, I don't know, rotund and because he was wearing a few layers. I always think about that when the rabbit's crawling on him. Those claws, rabbit claws, make me nervous. Yeah. I don't know why.
Well,
I'm a cat daddy.
Even when he got the cleaver in the chest, like I could there was padding, of course, but it just looked like it was not his actual physique. But yeah, with them, like there was just, I don't know, it felt very well, he just felt like one of the Three Stooges. She was just a character in and of herself, like the rollers in the hair. I think the first thing we hear out of her mouth is "God damn it, Harold," and she just doesn't stop. And I was trying to think like what will that all look like after like the rollers come out? Like I could just see like a very glamorous, curly hairstyle. Like the next day when they open up shop, she's gonna be behind the counter and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, your hair looks so effortless." And she's like, "Thank you."
Like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, even her tone of voice will change. She's like, "Oh, Harold, please step to the back and fetch some fresh milk for Mrs. Kravitz," or whatever. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, Harold. But I did notice. I remember off pod on the old pod actually.
Yeah.
I noticed a sign for the first time then for the goldfish. And it said, "Say hi to Lionel," and I couldn't make out what the name of the second fish was. It looked like H2O, and I think we talked about that for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But speculating what else it could be, I think I figured out what it is.
What?
It's "Say hi to Lionel," and I believe hero. It looked like a tiny E and a tiny R between a giant H and a giant O. I don't know why it's significant. I just felt like I should tell you.
Lionel and Hero. I mean, you can ask Steve Miner. Maybe his memory goes back to what any of that means.
Maybe, is it on any of the commentaries for the third movie? Have you watched any?
I don't. Commentaries are a lot to get through sometimes. Like, there's some that I really love listening to, but I feel like, especially with that release, there were so many commentaries on each movie that I'm like, I don't want to spend time. I mean, what would be nice is if they were like made in like downloadable form that you could like kind of listen to them like a podcast. But I don't want to sit like in front of my TV, or even like if I'm doing something at home and have the commentary playing, because I'm probably more focused on something else. So like the sound would throw me off. But I've downloaded the Wes Craven Scream commentaries. Like, I've listened to them all before, but I downloaded them with the intent to listen to them like while I'm out and about, and it just hasn't happened yet. But I know those are good commentaries, because I mean, like, Wes Craven will give good commentary. And I think Steve Miner, I remember distinctly, I believe it was Steve Miner and Jamie Lee Curtis doing their commentary for H2O. And I had a good time with that from what I recall. But it's been a while since I've listened to that. And you know, like, anyone doing a commentary with Jamie Lee Curtis, like, they have to, you're on your toes with there, because she's gonna be all over the place and cutting you off. So you got to keep up.
It's just like a podcast.
Yeah,
it's notorious. I've been listening to some podcasts where I am screaming, like I'm in my car and I'm screaming at the dashboard, "Let her finish!" And it's.
Oh, people say that to us too. Yeah.
Oh, do they? Oh,
I've seen some here and there. Yeah.
Okay, I know we interrupt each other, but I always feel like
we do.
It's like, well, okay, so what were you? Yeah, I mean, we're at a delay. If we were in the same room, it might happen less.
Yeah.
But like, you're in another country, so it stands to reason.
Yeah, give us a break. Come on. People.
Yeah, give us a break. We're in different countries.
Cut us some slack here.
Yeah. So, you got anything else to say about this opening?
I mean,
I think Edna and Jason.
The thing that just like upsets me the most is just like him like eating out of the things and like drinking the orange juice and putting it back on the shelf and all that, because it's just like that offends me more than just seeing him like sitting on the toilet. Actually, because I mean, fortunately nobody's gonna consume that food because it's a crime scene now, but. You know, they could have not been killed, and they would have like opened up shop the next day, and someone would have bought that and drank his like backwash and that he like drank a whole bunch of it too. They're ripping people off at this point. And she's aware of it. She's completely like she's just like, doctor says you can't do this, and just like throws it back on the thing. Where I would have thought that like her concern would not actually be his health, but more so like their livelihood. If that makes it just like
apparently not.
No, she actually gives a shit about his heart. But
well, I think she likes haranguing him, and if he's not eating healthy, then she can get on him about that. And if the business isn't doing well, then she can get on him about that. I feel like she needs to unload a lot, and Harold is, I don't know if he's used to it, but he's come to expect.
Here we are talking about how like we made these backstories for part 2 characters.
You know what?
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Like, fuck me. This is just what we do with this franchise.
But honestly, I mean, maybe I'm speaking too soon, but I feel like Harold and Edna are an exception, because I think that with everyone that we're about to meet, they're very much like just like templates of just like different like types that you would see. This really is, to me, like, this is the movie that started the Friday the 13th trend of just like the characters who are like, you know, you have the jock, or you have like the slut, or basically the playable characters in the game. And it's what we kind of went on. I think 7 is like the most like does it the most egregiously, but I kind of love it for that.
Me too.
Because it's like none of these people would ever like be hanging out together in real life, and I think that especially speaks to the hippie couple in the back of the van. Because I'm just like,
oh my god,
who are these? First of all, I mean,
Chris, Chuck and Chile, right?
Yeah, Chuck and Chile, but it's just like they're in the same friend group, and these characters, they don't say anything. I mean, they might have like a line or two, but it's not until like way later in the movie when they have like their little bit that they speak. They actually have personalities. I didn't even know. They were just the stoners.
Like,
kind of, yeah.
Well, that's another thing. Is like I feel like the dialogue between any of the characters in the principal group that we follow, like the friend group, the kids in the van, or the adults accompanying the chaperones. Maybe they're the chaperones, and that's what they're going.
Yeah.
But Chuck and Chile. I feel like any of their exchanges could be had by any other characters. Like they all kind of like have the same kind of banter where they're teasing each other. They're like, putting each other down like in a ha 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 kind of way.
Yeah.
And the other one's never like laughing, but you know that they take it, with affection and love, because usually the couples are just gonna like make it anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean, when that kind of dialogue is just interchangeable and it doesn't matter who you're watching, they just need to put some words in some characters' mouths. And I will say, the easy descriptors, like we can go through it and just kind of be like Debbie is the pregnant one, and she's the friend. She's the
best friend.
Chris's pregnant friend.
Yeah,
she's the best.
We've never had another pregnant character in this franchise. From what I remember.
Not that I can remember.
Yeah.
We had a woman who just gave birth in Jason Goes to Hell, but I don't think anybody else has been pregnant.
Yeah,
cool. I mean, I like it. I don't dislike it. It kind of makes me think like, well, here's
the thing. I question whether she actually is, or it's just sort of like maybe an excuse that she's using to just like get things, or just it's just sort of like, I'm pregnant, like you do what I say. Because like later on in the movie when she's in the shower and he's like, hey, want a beer? And she's like, yeah. But then she's like, never mind about that beer. And I'm like, well, is she saying that because she's like, wait, I can't drink because I'm pregnant? Because she had the bit earlier where she's like, I can't smoke that, I'm pregnant, remember? And it was hilarious because like she literally had just said 2 seconds before that she was pregnant. It's just like, no, we completely forgot. But that's her shtick. She just says, I'm pregnant.
Oh,
and she's not showing, like she's just like very, if she is, she's very early on in this pregnancy. But it's just it was a weird inclusion that they're just like, we have everyone in this group, one of them's pregnant, and she doesn't actually have to be showing, but she's pregnant.
No. Well, I think it's, I had also just kind of attributed to like lazy writing, just kind of like, how are we going to make it known that she's pregnant? Have her say it. Well, what if they miss it? The people aren't going to be like listening to the dialogue. Well, have her say it again, because also I feel like the beer thing, I do understand, because I feel like the 80s was kind of like the last decade where it was still kind of like your decision to believe whether alcohol affected a fetus or not, like I feel like it was pretty common knowledge that there were people, that there were, effects you could have on, this life that you're carrying inside you, if you choose to see it that way, if you drank alcohol. But I also know that there were people who were just kind of like, hey, you know what? It's my business. I know what's best for the baby. Gulp, gulp, gulp. A glass of wine, one glass of wine a week calms me down. It calms the baby down too. I mean, I feel like there were probably a lot of people still trying to like at the last stand, like trying to like hold on to like kind of like this, like show me some proof. And then by the 90s we were so health conscious it was crazy. But I've never questioned whether she was pregnant or not. I thought she just wasn't. I think because it's new, she just wasn't used to being pregnant and was just kind of like, oh fuck, no, you know what? I won't. I won't have that beer.
I just think it's funny because it's just like it's set up like it's because like you said it's said so many times, but it has nothing to do with anything that happens throughout the rest of the movie. I mean, wouldn't it have been interesting if she was the final girl and it was just sort of like this thing where it's just like now she's protecting this life inside of her. As well, but again, it's just a thing. Like everyone is like an archetype, and I mean, I would say that Chris's is that she's just sort of like she's the boring, responsible one.
Who's haunted?
She's got trauma.
Trauma. Yeah, no, she. Oh God, and like, okay, Dana Kimmel. I remember seeing her on like Facts of Life and maybe on Different Strokes, even like that kind of thing,
Yeah.
like sitcom actress and everything like that. And I feel like I largely get that from her as well. I do have to say I kind of vacillated more than I ever have back and forth with my opinion of her because I feel like particularly when it comes down comes down to the wire and she has to fight Jason, which we can delve into more later, but I did find myself kind of like going, "Oh, I like that. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, but that's pretty cool." But oh God, she just I zigzag
the Edward
between
zigzag. I was
liking
gonna
and
say
disliking her. Yeah.
your zigzag notes.
Yes. Absolutely.
I think it's just funny because, a lot of the characters in this movie, but especially her, don't have an internal monologue, so they're just like speaking out loud. It's just like, I didn't leave this door open.
Right.
Or my favorite is like when she comes back to the cabin later when everyone's dead, and I still have no idea what it is she walks into. Like it looks like cobwebs, and then she's like, "Huh, where's that coming from?" Like I just like, is it like the water dripping down? But like her reaction to it, and then just saying like, "What's that now?" And even like with Debbie, because when she's in the hammock and the blood's dripping down, just like, "What's this?" Like, could it be coming from above me?
Right. And also, wait, isn't it the same exchange where, like the one you just described, like, wasn't this door closed just a few minutes ago? And then doesn't somebody respond and she goes, "Nothing." And it's just very jagged and very like, not I don't know, not connected to anything. So I feel like I don't know, it's hard to kind of like be disarmed as an audience and just kind of feel like, oh, okay, great, you do the work. I feel like I'm doing the work a lot of the time in the setups, particularly with these kids. Because also there's another thing is like, even their delivery, even though I like them, like for the most part, like I like Debbie, but she has like a really stiff delivery sometimes. Even when she's like being funny, like when Andy's just kind of like, "So how does this work?" When they're at the hammock, she's like, "Well, one of us lays down and the other one gets on top of it," like something like that. But it's just always in the same kind of like monotone delivery.
Yeah.
Even the way like after she finds out that they're sleeping in the hammock and Andy walks in and it's just like, "Where's the bed?" And she just kind of holds up the hammock, but she just kind of, here, like just up with a hammock and I don't know.
So
there's very little effort
Yeah.
going into the characterization or trying to make these kids
that actress
stand out.
Tracy Savage, who plays Debbie.
Yeah.
So she quit acting after this movie. I don't know what else she was in before this, if she had much.
She was a child actress
on the prairie. She quit acting right after this, and she actually went on to be a journalist and like an award-winning journalist. And I think she's according to IMDb, she's most famous for actually being a field reporter during the O.J. Simpson trials.
Yeah.
So,
and she still gets fan mail from people like wherever she works. Like she'll still get like requests to like sign posters or like autograph photographs of her and send them back and stuff. And she does. She's really, really cool about the whole thing. So that's
wasn't Dana Kimmel, because like I heard for a while that she was like very against these movies. She's like a very religious type and was kind of like, no, like this, like she wouldn't participate in anything. But then I heard like more recently that she was, because I saw photos of like the first four final girls, like Adrienne, Amy, and Kimberly back from Final Chapter. They were all like together.
Trish,
but the actress's name, they were all together in like photos at conventions and stuff. So if she did have kind of like a bad taste about these movies, she's come around to them or just been like, oh, I can actually, make a lucrative career out of appearing at fan conventions and things like that.
I've never seen any footage of her kind of like, talking about like, denouncing it or anything like that. But I can understand why, certainly, if it were going to be perceived that way, maybe people might have like misread just her wanting to kind of like put some distance between her and the movie so she could continue, to kind of like be known for other things and be considered for other things. Maybe she wanted to keep working and keep harping on that one movie. I mean, especially back in the 80s, like a lot of people did horror movies because it was a paycheck and because, it was experience, but, they didn't want to. And I don't believe she headlined a bunch of horror movies after this either.
Well, she was apparently she was originally cast in Shopping Mall, but she left the project because she didn't want to swear and wasn't fond of the sexual content. Kelly Maroney was cast instead. And then this is a quote on her IMDb. I'm not a big fan of R-rated movies. I believe movies should be doing a better job of standing up for good values and morals. I'm also not too fond of on-screen sex.
Okay.
So that's her probably. It's not the violence. It's okay if people are getting like macheted and axes to the head. It's just the swearing and the sex.
We also got to take it with a grain of salt if it's like a printed, like quote, because there's no way to verify whether it's like true. Like Michelle Pfeiffer went on on Instagram saying like, here's all these quotes that I didn't say about how I want to distance myself from Grease 2. I love that movie. I'm proud of that movie. I love talking about it with,
Well, like this is like comparing like apples and oranges. Like that's Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
No,
but I mean,
Dana
like
Kimmel.
But what I have seen Dana Kimmel herself say, like in interviews in like Crystal Lake Memories, and like his name was Jason and stuff like that. I do know that she pushed for it to kind of like be a little less spelled out and a little more alluded to whether something happened or not with Jason, because also this is the first time we've only had Jason alive for really one movie prior to this one, but I never got like a big sexual predator vibe from that character.
Well,
he seemed strictly killer.
Yeah.
And so I it baffles me that they would even want to go in that direction in this movie with him, attacking a teenage girl for that purpose. It seems also distasteful to me.
It's not like fully explicit of just like laying it out that that's what the case was. So I think in that way, like you can kind of go through like the following movies and not really kind of like hone in on like, oh, well, he's changed his MO or anything like that. But I think that largely like with this movie and why I kind of write it off in a way is because this is really the only chapter in the franchise where there's, first of all, Jason is not even mentioned by name. Nobody at any point in the movie says Jason or Jason Voorhees. There's no mythology that's spoken about. There's no new mythology to come to light. So it's like really like you could excise this. You could excise any of the movies, but you could excise this one especially. And I mean, other than the final chapter starting with him in a barn with an axe in his head, it's just like, what are you missing here? Like we don't find anything out about him that we didn't know. Like, part 2, you had that wonderful scene of the campfire of just like talking about the story of just like how he disappeared and nobody knows like, what happened. And I think that was such a huge, compelling thing that like motivated Ginny as a character, just like when they're in the bar and they're talking about Jason and she's like empathizing with him and just trying to understand what could have happened with him or who could he be now. And that was something that added dimension to her character, but also Jason as a killer and their relationship as killer and final girl as well, like going into the end. And I think that, why someone like Chris doesn't respond or jump off the page as much to me is because she's really, like you've said this before, she's kind of like final girl by default. And it's sort of just like this very like contrived scenario that was made up just to give her a link to Jason that we don't really, like she doesn't understand, we don't understand, Jason doesn't seem to understand either. Because he's not coming after her in a Michael Myers, Laurie Strode kind of way. He's just there because it's like, well, I'm here and there's people in my Crystal Lake domain. I got to kill them. So it's
what I do.
Yeah, there was like a lot of this movie. I don't think that there was much considered into like the writing or the characters or the performances or anything, because it was like we're making a 3D movie.
Yeah, Also, I mean, there's a lot to address here, but another thing I think about in terms of just kind of like lending itself to the grossness of it is the man-made lake of it all. The fact that like this is not the
Yeah.
this is not the crystal lake, and barely even swampy. Like I mean, swampy for sure. Like I mean, all those frog noises were just ambient noise because somehow frogs found the man-made lake they put together that they dug up and filled this hole with water, which is why it's not clear or even green, and you can't see anything reflected in it. It's just mud, and it was infested with like tadpoles and frogs somehow. You tell me. But and even the landscape is, it's like more mountainous than anything that we saw, like in Jersey, in the Jersey locations of the last two movies. So it's got that kind of going for it aesthetically. But I still need to visit that site if it's still standing. I believe the cabin that they all occupy burned down a long time ago, but that the barn is still standing. And it's somewhere up in Valencia, like about a half hour north of me. And I've still yet to visit it. I've got to get on that just in case it's still standing and take photos, put them on Instagram, show y'all like what it looks like.
Yeah, let's talk about the barn because I mean we'll get back to the other characters in a second. I was watching this with Eric, friend of the podcast, Eric Champney, and he was just talking about like they make a lot of usage out of that barn, almost to the point where like we get to the barn again. It's like I'm sick of this barn. We spend so much time in the movie in this barn that it's like their main set, other than inside the living room of the house, and because I think the first time we see it is when Fox goes in and she's like,
Boy.
what is with this character? Because it's like she's all over the place, but she's like enters this environment and all of a sudden she turns into like this kid in a candy store and she's just like wow, this is so cool,
whimsy and
it's a
marvel
barn.
And
there's all this like
stars in her eyes.
There's all this horse stuff and hay, even though there's like some throwaway line about how like, why do you have all this hay? It's like, well, my dad was gonna buy horses, but he never did. And there's saddles.
That's
and
the
shit.
first exposure to the barn is when
Rick
is pulling the hay up and everything. But we don't really see the inside of it. We just kind of see
we know it's there. Yeah.
Exterior.
It's just, and why are they even doing that? Because he had to get his shirt off and just be.
I guess
the
I didn't see one
Rick.
Horse. Were there even horses there?
There was no animals. They have no animals at that barn, but they just have a lot of hay. And it's somehow been sitting outside for like 2 years because that was the last time she was there, and like it hasn't been rained on or anything. I'm assuming that hay can withstand rain. I don't know anything about farming, but
you tell me. I don't know.
It's just like when Fox goes in and just like the bewilderment of it all, and I love how she's clearly like she's going up the ladder and she clearly sees someone. And it's just like, who's there? Who kicks like hay on her? And she's kind of going up, scene cuts, and then we're outside with the other guy. What was his name again?
Loco.
And this might be my favorite shot of the movie because she's swinging. She's forgotten about the fact that someone was up there kicking hay on her. She saw a fucking rope and just like, wee, I'm gonna do this, and he's like, quit fucking around, and it cuts back to her and the rope is just swinging without her on it, and I love that shot. Like, it's so bad, but it might be my favorite shot in the whole movie because it's like something bad has happened to her.
I also swear that she is wearing like Olivia Newton-John's pants from the last scene in Grease when Sandy goes bad. Like she's got those black skin tight something or others on. But I agree with you. She seems rather taken with the barn for no reason, especially when they're trying to establish them as so tough and everything like that. And what's funny is they cast some of the sweetest people. Like when you see them in interviews, like the guy who plays Loco, the little white guy, he his name is Kevin O'Brien, and he I've seen him in interviews, and he talks like Woody Allen. He's sitting there talking about what it was like shooting Friday the 13th Part 3, and I'm just like, oh my god, you're
Okay,
adorable.
that was his voice, because I remember he has like a completely different voice, but I wasn't sure what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the Woody Allen.
Yeah.
And he's of course he's the one that's just the cigarette that just would not fall out of his mouth.
Yeah, and he's got a great scowl. That's the thing. When he takes his glasses off and slicks his hair back, he's got a great face. Like, he does look tough.
Yeah.
But then they give him, like, a sleeveless shirt, and you can just see his tiny little arms, and he's really, really short, and it's like, aw, he's a little biker baby. And then Gloria Charles playing Fox, like, I thought she did an okay job, actually. Like, I mean, she did what they asked her to do, and I'm like, okay, it's there on screen. But I know she even went on record saying, like, she was so embarrassed to do the scene in the convenience store where she has to ask Vera, "Is this your rubber?" when she pulls it out of Shelly's. She says, "I don't think I'd ever said that word in my life, so I was really embarrassed to say it in a room full of like a crew and like all these people." So she's a sweetie. And then there's Ali, the bald, brooding black fellow who
The leader.
who dies twice. Because, I mean, or we think he's dead the first time, then he has to come back in and get his hand cut off before he dies for real. With I love his reaction when he gets his hand cut off, though. He just kind of goes,
Yeah.
It's really funny.
He lived at the end there just so or he died so Chris could live.
He died so Chris could live.
Yeah, basically.
And he was played by Nick Savage. And again, I mean, I liked his exchange with Shelly, like everything that they do with the car.
Yeah.
When Shelly and Vera, is trying to drive away, and he's just like peering through the windshield and just kind of like smiling. And Shelly's an idiot, so he smiles back and thinks like, oh, okay, he's just making way for us.
Let's talk about Shelly.
Oh, dear God.
Shelly.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, he's kind of got the Bob Ross hair,
afro.
But, yeah. No, I don't know. I know you really hate Shelly.
Well, this is the thing.
I'm indifferent. I enjoy him. I enjoy him for what he is. He's a gimmick, just like all of these other characters here. But there's never been another Shelley, and there never will be another Shelley.
Other characters have tried to be the Shelley of the movie, and they have failed. Because I don't find them anywhere near as despicable as Shelley. But the funny thing is, like, as has my kind of like opinion metamorphosed over the years on this movie, so has my opinion on Shelley. Because when I was young, and I used to watch this movie in my like early teens, mid-teens, I remember I hated him because he was, no offense to Boy Cried Wolf, who's our editor, but he was the boy who cried wolf in the movie, he, and you don't need that in a horror movie. You don't want someone going like, oh man, oh, I got stabbed. Oh, I fooled you. You don't need that in a horror movie and he gets exactly, that's one thing, at least gets exactly the comeuppance that they set him up for, which is more than I can say for some of the characters in some of the previous situations that we've seen in the other movies. Yeah. So there's that. But so that used to annoy me. And then for a while I started thinking like, but he's a crucial component of the franchise. Like, how can you have a Friday the 13th franchise without Shelley? And I still do feel that way. But what bothers me now is his misogyny. Because he straddles this line of being kind of sweet and sympathetic and being kind of selfish and what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of like without any kind of accountability for himself. Like, because he thinks he's pathetic, he wants you to feel sorry for him so it can make it okay that he fucks up over and over again, when every time he fucks up he gets the same response from people. You would think that, eventually it might kind of dawn on him, maybe I should not do that. Maybe I should just because it all comes down to, and we'll get into Vera in a minute, but one of my favorite things about this movie is watching them interact with each other. Even more so, like, as I get older. But what my favorite exchange between them in the whole movie, I think, is when, he finally dons the hockey mask and, you know, spramps out of the out of the water and scares her, and he's laughing and stuff, and and that's when my line, you know, just like, it's like, I just want you to like me. I do like you, but not when you act like a jerk. And he's like, it's better to be a jerk than a nothing. And she's like, I didn't say you were nothing. And he's like, you don't have to, I can tell. And I'm like, and she's like, you're wrong, Shelly, you're wrong. I do adore the quotes in this movie that I can perform, but reenact. But okay, what I love about that exchange is, number one, I think she's an incredibly decent person, but I also it's the closest thing. I mean, we have a character who's like dealing with like the question, was I assaulted, was I not, you know, like, but he's kind of like the deepest character for me, along with Vera, just because like we're dealing with someone who oh God, like all roads lead back to Nettie so far of the first movie. Like, you know, here's a guy who's doing taking all the wrong steps to try and entertain everybody and be the life of the party and everything like that. And he's carrying pathos with him. But what I like about experiencing that exchange is just kind of like, it lays out everything that I just kind of like said, and I wish more moments in the movie did that, where it's just like, this is an interesting dynamic between these two characters, that's an interesting dynamic between those two characters, as opposed to just kind of like the same hands on hips smirk and punchline. Wah, wah, wah. So at least there is something, you know, to kind of grapple onto, glom onto, if you will, in this movie. And for me, it's between those two characters.
Yeah.
And I like their trajectory.
And I mean, that's why I actually, and we can kind of segue into Vera, because I think that she should have been the final girl of this movie.
100%.
And even like the way that she's set up, like other than like the fact that like Chris is like the ringleader, as it seems, of just like, you know, driving them all there. Also, what was Chris doing? Like half of her body was hanging out the window when they drove past the gas station. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
It's just like, who's driving the car? She's like full on like, I have to get a look at this, like, right out the window.
I mean, I wonder if the shot was close enough that maybe she wasn't even driving at all. Maybe they just had someone like pulling the like, you're not really driving, so could you please lean more out?
We need to see you. We need to see you. Yeah.
We need to see your eyes, Chris. Come, Dana, show us your eyes. Lean into the camera. I don't know why Steve Miner's English now, but
even with Vera, like her introduction, she's kind of the new guy or new girl, or just like the one who's not part of the group, the one that's like being introduced. So it's just like automatically like that's a more interesting character to me already, because it's like they aren't familiar with everyone here. They're sort of like out of their element. And I think the fact that like clearly there's some tension between her and her mother. She wasn't allowed to go. It was almost like I would have wanted to see like the movie start off with like her and her mom and just being like, I'm going to hang out with these people this weekend. And the mom being like, no, there's been murders, you're not allowed to go. And been like, whatever, I'm going anyway. And like having this fight. That to me, it's like we're actually seeing, the movie is showing us like this dynamic between mother and daughter, where we just hear from Chris about the story about like her and her parents. When it's just like, it's always comes back to show, don't tell. So I feel that like even with what little we get of Vera and like her exchange with her home life, I'm already feeling more final girl energy from her than I get through like from Chris throughout the entire movie.
Also, if we're talking story arc, like of course it's lovely to see her kind of laid out as this fighter, like shrieking in Spanish at her mother, Mrs. Sanchez. But and then just kind of showing up and just being totally game, just kind of like, so where's my date? And then there he is. And then the next moment we see them together because there's an awkward meeting, but then they're sitting in the van and she's like making conversation. She's not like being icy to him. She's not freezing him out or pretending he's not there. She's just kind of like, so what is that thing? And he's just kind of like, it's my whole world. And I'm like, oh dear God. It's like, in that little thing? And it's like, oh my gosh, look at you. You're actually like, you know, like, you're a nice girl, you know, like you're a cool person. Like you're going to treat him like a person. And cause you know, this is and then I think the next you know, like we have them like, you know, like at the gas station, everything like that. And I like the fact that like she has another thing she can kind of overcome, because like here, like all of a sudden the woman at the counter is telling her we don't take no food stamps, which I read as a kind of like, maybe because she's supposed to be written as like, you know, like a brown girl with the name Sanchez, and I'm,
Yeah.
you know, brown guy with a last name that ends in a vowel. I just, I feel like that must be a comment on like, you know, like, yeah, you're, you know, you're Latin, so you probably can't afford anything. I don't.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
wondering
definitely
if
no. That was what I got. It was definitely a microaggression.
that's
We don't take
not
no
so
food
micro.
stamps.
Yeah, right.
A mega aggression, yeah. But yeah, because it isn't the actress's name. Sorry, help me out here.
Oh, Catherine Parks.
She's white, right?
As far as I can tell, I have
Yeah.
never heard her kind of like go on the record and say that, you know, she was a Latina girl playing a Latina character or anything like that. So I think she just had dark hair, and they figured, yeah, you'll do,
Yeah,
which
well, just
happened a lot
just,
in the 80s.
Yeah,
and
just so
prior.
your last name is Sanchez, so yeah, go ahead. But yeah, I mean, even the
Yeah.
fact, like, even them being pitted against the biker gang, because like the biker gang is
Yeah.
like they're sort of like secondary antagonists here, and for them to kind of be
Yeah.
set up against Vera and Shelly, it just makes them so much more interesting. While we have like Chris and whatever his name is off doing their thing, being completely the most boring characters in the movie. That it's, I mean, that's typically how these Friday the 13th work. It's usually the more interesting characters are the victims, but it's just like, but with Vera, it's a case of like she's more interesting and she's more accessible. She's more empathetic.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say like this already isn't something new for the franchise, because we talked about how in part one the movie, it's like, it's almost like, I don't know if this is intentional on their part, but like now that we're 3 movies in, it's just like this setup of like, is this the final girl? Do we know who it is? Because we get Annie in part 1 where we're following her. We're made to believe that it's she,
Yeah.
you know, she's like the Janet Leigh, and then we meet Alice. But I even said that like it's still very difficult to pinpoint who it is when Alice shows up, other than the fact that she gets a close-up while all of the other female campers don't, even though I feel like we get a lot more exposure with Marcy in the beginning.
Sure.
Where it's that thing is like, who is the final girl? And even in part 2, we're introduced to Ginny so late in that first act, because we've had the full opening scene of Alice, and then we're introduced to like other characters like Jeff's girlfriend, whatever her name was,
Sandra.
Sandra, yeah. And here we are again. We're just like, is it Vera? Is it Chris? And I feel like even I'm going into part 4, I'm pretty sure they did the same thing. Was like, is it Trish, or is it one of like the girls in the friend group who's like staying across the way? So
Come on, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's an intentional thing, or is it just sort of, it's a case of them just being able to write these victim characters better than, it's almost like when they have a final girl, maybe they're overwhelmed with like, how do we make them interesting? How do we give them, like, infuse them with that final girl energy, and they end up failing because they're just thinking about it too hard?
Maybe. Or also, I mean, I'm also wondering if it could be, and I'll just speak for myself here, because, you know, like growing up gay, I know that I tended to lean much more into female heroes than male heroes. I mean, I definitely had my male heroes too, but there was an extra little jolt I got out of like watching a girl or a woman gain, and I'm sorry to be so binary about it, but that's what I was raised with. Just seeing a girl or a woman gain the upper hand in a situation where the cards are stacked against her because all of her friends before her, be they, you know, male, female, or other, were, you know, like, fell. You know, like they didn't win the fight. So that used to give me a jolt too. So maybe it's also just kind of like, because I wonder if people who kind of like look to, I don't know, male protagonists and stuff like that get anything from any of the guys in I certainly don't get anything from the guys in this movie, but except for the occasional eye candy, you know, like, but like I don't want to see Rick save the day for sure. Andy just seems kind of there, and Shelly, I don't really need to see him win the day either. I'm actually kind of relieved when he I mean, it's horrible to say, but I mean, again, like the mopiness and the self, you know, just kind of.
It took him a really
sabotage.
long time to die, because I mean, like presumably got his throat slashed before Jason came out and shot Vera in the eye.
Yeah.
So that entire time, Shelly was just sort of like, and like finding his way around while Jason was just going and killing everyone else. Like killed 5 other people before he finally succumbed to his wound. That's what I loved about it too, because it's just like he disappears for a while. We're just meant to believe that he's dead, because nobody thinks that that's, you know, when Jason walks out with the mask for the first time, by the way, which is an iconic moment.
Oh yeah,
what
absolutely.
do you? Because I mean, like you said, there's really nothing much to say about Andy, and Rick is like a wet blanket. Probably like the least amount of personality of any of like the boyfriend characters of like these movies.
And again, with the acting, like there's the moment where they're sitting there right before she does her speech, where he she's sitting down, he's just like wanting to talk to her, it's just like, I'm here with you, isn't that enough? And he's just kind of like, I just want to know if, you know, I'm trying to touch you and you pull back. I'm just trying to figure out where I stand. Or, you know, like stupid stand. And he's saying this stupid dialogue the way an actor would say stupid dialogue if they weren't going any deeper. And he's just kind of like moving into the foreground, putting his hands in his pockets, not looking at her while he's talking to her. And then, you know, like when she says something, turning back and looking at her. Like it's so... I mean, and that's another thing I think about the shooting of this. It's so not cinematic. It feels like largely there's, even the way they stand, they're staggered. That contributes to the sitcom of it all, like the old, what sitcoms used to be. Because you get a lot of them standing like 4 to 5 people in a shot abreast, where every one of them is visible. And, you know, and they're just standing there saying lines to each other. And it lasts a while. And then... And you know, and again, like that moment when he's walking with his hands in his pockets, you know, he's talking like he's setting her up to do her dramatic monologue. You know,
I mean, you could probably put on a stage production of Friday the 13th Part 3. It's definitely the easiest one of the franchise to do that with. Well, he has
bust out. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say he also has that line. It's like when he's hoisting her up on the hay thing, because he's like, I blew off a weekend with Mary Jo Conrad.
Yeah. God, I hate Mary Jo Conrad, and I don't even know her. I just kind of think like, she's probably just waiting for him to call. Ew, she's so gross. I just get a very vivid image. That's a character I get a vivid image of in my head. But I do have to admit, one of Chris's lines had me bust out laughing when they were sitting down at that little fire, just the two of them, and she just said, because he was talking about like how nice it is out there or something, she's just like, it's deceiving. The quiet can fool you. It fooled me. Oh my god, this is bad. this is fun.
I mean, it reminds me of like the Marcy speech in the first one. When she had a little thing about like the rain, and then
her shower dream, when and then the rain turns to blood, and although hers was I feel like hers got a lot less space. I feel like hers was maybe like a stanza, if that, like a couple, a few sentences, whereas it's still a speech. But Dana Kimmel, that was at least a page single spaced. You know,
are we doing the monologue?
I couldn't find it anywhere, and I didn't have the time to just like take it all down. So maybe we should do like dramatic readings for like one of these after darks or something. Just do like.
I really wanted a dramatic reading of the.
I know it used to be. They used to have all of them on a website. It was like Crystal Lake, speeches or something like .com, and I can't find it to save my life. I guess it got dismantled, and it's not on any of the wiki pages. It's not in the quotes for the movie
on IMDb.
So unless I took dictation, I know. So unless I took dictation, which I can do, like, but let's do that for like an after dark. We'll do like a dramatic reading, or we can do it for like a stream live.
There you go again, calling the shots.
But I'm posing ideas, guys. If you want to watch me and Zach reenact some of the most famous moments from some of your favorite slasher movies, give to Zach Cherry's Patreon. Link in bio. But anyway, did I sell it okay?
You did good, kid.
Good. But to get back to Shelley's misogyny, okay. The thing that bothers me the most, I think, when I watch him now is his exchange when he's juggling with Andy, and then little Debbie comes over. And she's just kind of like, I can think of something better you can do with your hands. He's like, oh, balls. So he leaves. Yeah. And then Shelley's still going, and over saunters our sweet Vera. And she compliments him. She's like, you really are actually very good at that. He's like, thanks.
Also, did you notice that she was wearing Chris's pants from earlier?
No!
The pink pants.
Oh my god,
I guess like
they are.
The wardrobe department must have been like, we can't afford anything else, so you wear that, nobody will notice. Unless there's a backstory where
where her pants got wet and she
or she's like, oh, I really like those pants, and Chris is like, oh yeah, you can wear them tonight if you want.
Or whoever was in charge of wardrobe just got a 2-for-1 deal at like JCPenney or Gottschalk's or whatever stores were around at the time. Okay, so Vera's there and she compliments him and everything, and he's like, Vera, I like you. I think maybe sometime would you like to? And she puts her her hand to his mouth. She touches him, and she's just kind of like, I don't think so. Like says undeniably like, I'm turning you down. And then realizes, okay, I just rejected you. So, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go outside, and then I'm gonna just hang out for a little while, and then when I come back inside, we'll talk. And I'm just like, totally decent, like totally cool, totally mature. And then he's just like, yeah, talk, great. And then when she leaves, and he just mutters under his breath, bitch. And I'm like, she does not deserve that. She was nicer to you than you deserved. The kid in me, like, watches him and thinks about how much trouble I had tolerating his obnoxious behavior. And I don't just mean like, a few things. I mean, like, from beginning to that point, I'm just like, there were so many points where I don't think I could be the person at that age that Vera's being, like as a teenager. I don't think I'd be that mature or that compassionate to Shelley. I think I'd probably call him nothing and walk away. I mean, I don't think I've ever called anybody nothing in my, I've never called anybody nothing in my life, not even as, oh, well, maybe Freddy Krueger, but no, I mean, but I probably wouldn't have a problem dismissing him and just avoiding him for like the rest of the weekend or the week, however long they're spending there camping. But I just think like Vera deserved so much better. She was dishing out like human decency, like it was, just effortlessly, like just trying to be a good person, but also be honest. Like she wasn't gonna go out with him if she didn't want to. And I'm like, cool.
I mean, I think that we've established at this point that Vera deserves so much better from every aspect of this movie.
Agreed.
And it didn't. Her kill didn't make me feel good. Like that was probably the one I felt the worst about. Not that I usually feel bad about like a lot of these characters because they are just like cannon fodder, but with her especially, and she was like the first one of them picked off. I mean, assuming like because obviously Shelley didn't die until later on, but
and it's preceded with such a tender moment where she's looking through his wallet, and I think it's a photo of him and his grandmother? Question mark.
I'm not sure.
And she just kind of gets.
But I love,
you can't.
I love her line delivery as well when she's just like, "Hey, who are you? Cut that out now."
Or even just like, I like her cheeriness, like when she's just like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I dropped your wallet." Just like, you were adorable. Please don't die. Stay in my movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, who are you? It's it's adorable. But
now put that thing down. What do you got there?
Because also that's another thing. I feel like here, like yes, we're championing like Vera's kind of like final girl potential over Chris's, for instance, because she is the final girl. But one of the things that I think bothered me the most about Chris also is it took her a while. I feel like it took her even longer than it took Amy Steele to kind of like be self-reliant and rise to the occasion and everything like that, because there was so much of, like the discovery of the bodies and whatnot through Chris's eyes and her experience, where she was calling for Rick, and she kept calling for Rick until finally she's kind of like backed up against a wall and just like, Rick, help me. And that's when he comes crashing through the window. And it's kind of like, here's your precious savior. That's Jason's voice, I've decided now.
Okay.
But,
wow.
I just wish so many things for this movie. I did want to ask, like, do you have any headcanon for Chuck and Chile and what they're doing on this weekend? How they know these kids and why they're in their van with bongs?
Did I not mention this? Maybe I like thought about it and I forgot to say it. But no, I just assumed that they were like hitchhikers.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, clearly they know them. I mean, Chile knows Shelley well enough to be like, asshole. And then they're like, let's scare him later when she's just like, yeah. Jumps out. She's the worst. I cannot. I mean, like, I love like the terrible acting. It's just like, Shelley's dead. Oh my god.
No.
That
like,
might be the best part about it.
Debbie, Shelley's dead. And then she discovers them, and oh my god. As she's power walking, but not quite like away. She's not even running.
She's mincing.
She's kind of gliding.
She's mincing.
Yeah, she's mincing away. Also, what is the story with that boot that she's wearing around her neck? She's got
I thought it was. Didn't we talk about this on the old podcast? I thought it was like a pipe. Or it was like an
something
inhaler.
To stash like her joints or something.
They're stoners.
Absolutely.
That's all they are. And I feel like that's where we're introduced to them, is like well after this, because it's like I think at that point Andy and Debbie are killed, and then they just wake up on the couch. They've just been sleeping through the whole thing.
Right. Also, I mean, I feel like they were written to be kind of like a male-female Cheech and Chong, as is evinced in Chuck's regalia that they've adorned him with. Like, he's got the headband, the beard, the glasses, the flowery shirt. And he looks like a stoner. He looks like a hippie, really. But okay, so I get the reference. With Chile, it feels like the only thing they knew to do was just kind of give her the same clothes that everybody else was wearing, except she because she's older, she looks like everybody's mom. She looks like a soccer mom, like with a little blue sweatshirt and little, like mom jeans that she's mincing around in. And she's even her hair, like I'm getting like season 1 Roseanne Barr on her own TV show, like I mean, it's good. It's got some bounce to it. Like maybe she's using Ethel's or Edna, not Ethel. Ethel comes later. Edna's curlers or something like that. Also, just want to take the opportunity to point out, I feel like even though I adore them, I think the special effects, this is probably the worst they've looked in any of the movies, because Tom Savini was not, you know, around. You can see so many of them are like things jutting out at you, so you can plainly see light bouncing off of the wires that are dragging them out to you. The snake, or one of my favorites, the eyeball coming out of Rick's face in quotes. But I mean, they're kind of endearing in their handmade quality, you know, like, and none of them are unmemorable. So I guess little column A, little column B, you know, like, okay, I'm of two minds about it. Like, they're not great, but I like them.
Do you have a favorite kill?
Oh, favorite kill? No, probably not. If I have to think about it. Usually, don't things like that just jump out at you? What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the one that is one of the most memorable is Andy walking on his hands.
Upside down. I was just thinking, yeah. That one's kind of fun.
But
and I like the throwback with Debbie's, with the knife through the back of her. Yeah. You know,
I feel like we've seen that one so many times. But I don't like they're not as memorable in this movie. That's for sure. And again, because there was more focus being put into like the 3D of it all. But actually, there's a character that we did forget about, and I don't even know if he has a name. There's not much to say about him, but he's the hobo or the drifter, just like laying in the road there. And all I could think was like, what is this? Like, this is like some poor ass attempt to recreate Crazy Ralph. Mm-hmm. Who was
should have just resurrect Crazy Ralph, as far as I'm concerned. Like, you throw him in the lake and he comes back.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, the Crystal Lake is just
regenerative powers. Yeah, why not? But he was, again, gross. Like, just like Crazy Ralph. At least I'd engage in a conversation with him. It'd probably just be, "You're doomed. I'm a messenger of God. You're all gonna die here." And I'd be like, "Okay, cool. Anything else today, Ralph?" Like, that is all.
Yeah. I mean, well, even if it just like, because I do like the fact that Ralph is killed in part 2, just because it was such a great moment. Because I did not expect it when I first saw the movie.
That's true.
It took me by surprise. But if like even like whoever this proxy was, if he had more purpose in the story than just to like be on the road, I guess like holding an eyeball.
It's so obviously like a cow's eye too that he's holding. It's not a human eyeball at all.
It was just more. It's just like stuff happening. But that's all I could. I think we've covered everyone except for Jason. I don't know if you wanted to talk about Jason in the movie, played by Richard Brooker in this go around.
Yeah, I liked him. I especially kind of appreciated if if Chile is mincing, I guess he's strolling. He's got I don't appreciate the Vera side of Vera's kill. I mean, again, memorable, so there's that. But I mean, I don't want to see Vera die. But the Jason side of her kill, I love the fact that he just saunters out onto the dock. And just kind of languidly holds up the what the dart or whatever it is.
Spear
I don't even know what you call it. Spear gun, harpoon, something. Yeah, that thing. And she's just like, "Who are you? Hey, that's not funny." Drops it, walks away. Just like no fulfillment, no reverie, no kind of like Wolfman. Yes, I am the man. No, just like, okay, one down. Long night ahead of me. That's what I hear. So, but then I don't know. There's something. And because I watched it like when I was younger, and because like all of the assault side of things, like the dastardly side of it, the adult side of it, if you will, like didn't even occur to me when I was a kid. I just kind of like thought like, oh well, she's scared and she doesn't know what happened. That makes sense, like that's as far as it went. So everything about between the two of them was just about violence and about you're the guy in my nightmares basically ever since the last time I was here. And I think once he kind of realizes who she is in the way that In the way that Sally Hardesty of Texas Chainsaw 2022 wishes Leatherface remembered her and all of her friends and family. I feel like he does kind of I don't know if recognize, but certainly
when he lifts off the mask to take the rope off of his neck, he kind of he has this like little smile, like it's me,
there's
bitch.
This glee.
Yeah, but that might just be it might be the prosthetic, because you know, like the story of like the face.
Tell me. I don't know.
I don't even know. I don't.
Maybe.
I'm not. It's been a while since I researched it, but they had like 3 or 4 different designs for the look of Jason in the movie.
Right.
So it's there's like different footage. There's a whole scene that they cut, which was a nightmare sequence, which was replaced with I guess would have been like Mrs. Voorhees coming out of the lake. Which also makes no sense, because it's like they don't even know who that is. She was not even brought up in the story. But he was like gonna burst out of the door at the end and chop off Chris's head with an axe, which was a nightmare of hers. But the look of him and the makeup effects were just they weren't happy with them. So there's all these different things, and that's why throughout like the earlier parts of the movie, when we see Jason, his face is kind of obscured a lot. Especially like, like we see him like it's either just his legs or things like in the barn. But they're just trying to keep him hidden, because they're just like, this doesn't look good.
Yeah, and I do remember, now that you're bringing it up, I do remember Richard Brooker saying in interviews, in early tests, and even with the early shooting that they did, like they decided to redesign the face just because it looked too much like a monster. They wanted him to be monstrous but more human, and so I don't know how far they how far they detoured. That's probably what I'm looking for. How far they detoured from the original design, because I haven't seen. Have you seen like the original footage? Because didn't they shoot an alternate ending?
The footage of that scene doesn't exist, but there are stills.
Oh, okay.
You can find stills. Actually, there's the artwork on the thing. I'm not even going to open it because it's too much of a thing, but you can look it up online. The artwork inside the waxwork vinyl shows that particular, like, her head. So it's well known if you're a Friday the 13th aficionado. But you could probably like look up these images online.
Sure, just Google them. But I if I can just like focus on the zigzaggery of it all for a little bit.
I'm ready for it.
Okay, I feel like the first zig that I experienced was when, because you were talking about like the 3D effects and everything like that, and things like them using it, and I feel like one place they didn't use it that actually might have been interesting. I don't know, maybe it looks different in 3D, but when she's first going after Jason, after she's been in the closet and everything like that, and she finds the knife and pulls it out of Debbie, and emerges after his axe, I think, is what's going through the door. She comes out of the door and starts stab motioning toward him. And okay, if she's just doing it to try and fend him off, to just try and like, I will stab you, I mean business, you get out of my way, like that's what it looks like. Or it also looks like an actress who's afraid of hitting the very expensive 3D camera that they're shooting the scene in, and also doesn't want to hurt the actor because maybe it's a real knife, so she's just going to, so the director Steve Miner probably just told her, it's all right, just stab down, and at a diagonal, and just keep doing that, and we'll cut away, we'll make it look better. And then they forgot to edit it to make it look better, because it just looks like an actress going like back and forth. And so that was the first zig for me.
But that to me, that just kind of attributes to the camp value behind this all, because I mean, I could see, and I feel like there at some point that Don Mancini must have recreated that in one of the Chucky movies or episodes of the TV show, because I have some vivid memory of like some character, whether it was Chucky or Tiffany, coming out and doing the same thing,
or Nika Maybe. I don't know. I have to go back and now I have to go back and watch the entire franchise over again.
Oh, poor you.
But then there was a moment where I zagged, and zag is good, I guess, because I didn't remember it. But it was just the moment after all of that, after she like goes into, I'm guessing, the attic or whatever, this little room. And he's trying to get to her, and she goes out the window, and he's grabbing her, and she wants to drop, but he won't let her. And she's trying to get his hands to loosen her, and there's something, all she says is one word, and she just says, no. And it's muffled. It's like very, like, well, she's like, no, and everything. And there was something about that I was just kind of like, ooh, that just got me. Like, that's just like, I don't want you touching me, like, and I don't know, it just struck a chord with me. I was just kind of like, okay, good, she's saying no. I was on her side all of a sudden. But then I zigged because she drops down and he goes after her, and she decides to go over and wait behind the door with, of all things, I'm just thinking like, okay, there's a pile of wood there. Isn't there another axe nearby, or another pitchfork, or something, a weapony weapon or something? Like, it's not something you just clunk. Like, I mean, again, I don't know the terrain, but I just kind of felt like it's silly to just pick up a log and just kind of clunk him after the things that you've seen him do to your friends. Like, get something sharp, do some damage. Come on, girl. As opposed to the aforementioned, when you were talking about, I believe Harold as being like one of the Three Stooges. It's kind of like a Three Stooges routine. It's just kind of like blunk, and then the laugh track kicks in. Like that's what should have happened.
This Jason also, he was like making noise, like he was like groaning at. Getting damaged. I think so. Yeah. I distinctly remember. I was falling asleep.
That's because
I've seen this movie so many times. Yeah. I've just like it's fine. Yeah. I was okay.
No, that's the thing. It is fine, but I do kind of check out and then check back in. Like, I always come back, but there are a number of times where I'm just kind of like, oh, nothing happens in this scene, so I'll just wait it out. Yeah. But I do not check my phone. I just kind of zone out. But I can't remember if I've already asked you this. I mean, I lived through the time, so I should know. And everybody who sees this movie, nobody seems to be able to answer this. As far as you know, was gas reserve ever a thing? And is it now? Why did they stop? Like, because she, runs out of gas when she's going over the bridge and has the no moment. Yeah. And then she's flipping out, sees him running toward her, and then realizes, empty, no gas. And then she hits the switch that's labeled in like the kind of label maker I used to use on like VHS tapes to label the movies or the TV shows that I had taped, so you can see them from the side. They were notorious in the 80s, but I just can't. I've never seen reserve on any vehicle of any sort. It feels like a great thing to have, like an extra, gallon or two of gas just in case of an emergency. You need to drive an extra mile to get to the station or something. Like, why did they stop? If they ever have it, or is it just purely fictional for this movie? I've never seen it.
I don't know. I just Googled gas reserve, and a different kind of gas reserve came up. So it might be a fictional thing. I don't know.
Okay.
But you know what? I fell asleep around that part, so that's why I was just like, what are you talking about? But yeah. I do love the and because this was an image that was on the back of the VHS, because I remember I saw this VHS years before I ever rented or watched any of the movies, and I did have that memory of like him reaching into the through the window and the thing being rolled up, and he might have even like had smashed it. I can't remember, but I have a distinct memory of like seeing that image on the back of the VHS and being terrified. I'm just like, oh, that guy's spooky.
I mean, and then we get to the barn of it all. We already covered
we have been at the barn this entire fucking We watch as Shelly goes in the barn. We watch Chuck and Chile go in the barn. We watch Fox go into the barn. Loco, Ali. Everyone gets a turn to go into the barn except for Andy and Debbie because he wants to go in the barn, but she's just like, no, I'm going back. And he's like, oh, okay. But literally, all of them go into the fire. Rick is in the barn. Every character.
Yes.
It's like everyone went. They didn't even have a script. Each one of the cast just went up to Steve Miner and they're just like, "We want to go in the barn. Okay, we'll put you in the barn."
And that's when like
every single character gets their own set piece in the barn.
Yeah, but that's when like Catherine Parks turned to Larry Zerner, who plays Shelly, and just said like, "Everyone's going in the barn. We should go somewhere else. Let's ask him to go to a convenience store. I'm hungry." And that's why the only reason they shot a scene not in the barn. But
and then just for that purpose, they hired 3 different actors to facilitate the biker gang.
Yes.
Also, we spoke of it earlier, but just the theme song playing in the convenience store, very meta.
Yeah, well, if you can, I just think, well, they couldn't afford any real songs, so they figure,
well, it kind of has
Harry Manfredini played that could be playing on a radio, and so they just played it.
Well, it has a Muzak quality to it, but
oh my god, I wish there could be like a Muzak version, like full Muzak.
Well, yeah, because in the first movie, because that Fly Away Tiny Sparrow or whatever it is, because that's
right.
It's the music, the piece of music that's at the end when Alice is waking up on the canoe.
Yes.
But then that actual song is playing when Annie goes and just like, "Hey, y'all know where Camp Crystal Lake is?"
Yes.
And then there's just like silence, and they turn it in.
And then Enos agrees to drive her. Anyway,
Maurice.
I do have to say, Maurice. I do have to say, I really dug, because I just kind of like watched the action for a while, so I wasn't concentrating on the zig or the zag. But I think I zagged again when she, because also the mania is really going. But I like that she hangs him because she takes the opportunity to do it while he's unconscious. And I'm like, this is the overkill that I've talked about craving from Final Girls at this particular juncture in horror and my life. Like... Good. Yeah.
Yeah, but the way that she does it, it's just like it's so perfunctory. She didn't put her back into it, It just felt like, all right, I'm gonna put the noose around him and just like
she was fucking tired though. Like I can sympathize. I can just kind of
well, she was tired when she went. We had to watch her make the descent down and then how do I get out of here now?
I actually kind of dug that though, because like that's one of those situations where I'm kind of like engrossed enough in the action where I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, he slapped that beam down. Are you strong enough to like punch that up? Oh, you're using another whooping. Good. Like, okay, I'm keyed in now. Like I'm on the ride because I'm sitting there with her going like, how is she gonna? Oh, good. Like when Norman Bates is like cleaning the bathroom and I'm like, don't forget the spots on the window. Like stuff like that on the mirror. Sorry, but then, like, when he comes back, that's when the that we're going to end the movie with really goes
that's where the horses have been,
She's the horse. She is the horse.
That's what it's all symbolism. she's the metaphorical horse that her father never.
Oh my god. That's why she galloped away.
Yeah.
And then her pushing her way into the murky, muddy water, and I remember I had a friend who told me that like the scariest thing to him when he was very young, because I think he saw this when it was released, and the scariest thing to him was again that kind of gleeful like joy, like little he almost does a little victory dance like up there in the window when he sees her and she sees him. And he always attributed it to, I know what I look like, and I know it scares the shit out of you, so I'm just gonna keep looking at you. Yes, I am gonna get you. Yes, I am. That's what he said. Very child nightmare scenario. Whereas what I see is just kind of like she got in the leg. Oh boy! I killed enough people because my headcanon that we aforementioned from the other pods. I thought he was killing them all to try and resurrect his mother, and I thought it worked. I didn't think it was a dream sequence when I was watching this the first 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I just thought like, he's happy because his mom's gonna come back, and then she does. And her head's reattached and everything. I mean,
And
granted,
there's worms.
she's hideous, but but she'll get better. He did, so
Yeah, sure.
And this is just literally the first time in this franchise where I'm worried. This might be the only time where I am legitimately worried about the final girl as the movie closes, because all that while they're driving her away, we didn't get any of that. We just got, where's Paul?
Yeah.
Where's Paul? And we got some no when when Alice was reaching for her dream. So I mean, that's trauma, I guess.
Yeah.
But no,
I mean, that whole final bit, because I mean, like, even like the cops and just like their whole like, yep, all her friends are dead, or whatever the exchange was. Like, she's not doing too well though. I love how they like push her like head into the car too. Like they're like full on like arresting her. Wouldn't that have been something if she had been set up and framed for it all? That might have like bumped this up a little bit for me.
If the last thing we saw is her just Scout Taylor Comptoning from Rob Zombie Halloween 2 down a hallway.
That's where
Norman
then
Bates.
she would see the horse,
Then she would see the horse.
That would be the symbolism. Just talking about the horses, and then we see the horse at the end of the movie.
And then in the next movie, she's the one killing people.
Okay. Well, are you aware of like what originally was the idea for Friday the 13th Part 3? Because if we had got that, this might have been a very different franchise.
That Amy Steele was supposed to be in some kind of facility, was she not? And that Jason was supposed to seek her out and find her. And
she was to come back. So was Ted, everyone's favorite, played by Stu Charno.
Yeah,
I guess saying it right. Yeah. Welcome to God's country.
There you go.
Yeah, and he was gonna like come and break her out or something, and Jason was coming after her. So I mean, it might have been like a Halloween to Halloween kills to Halloween ends scenario with it's like, but Ginny's like story. Like Ginny might have been the like forever Friday girl, if they had done it that way. And I mean, like, I don't know, like, because that's the thing, we don't exist in that universe. We don't know if like it would have been better or not. But I mean, this is Jason's franchise, and it wasn't at that point when they were doing part 2, part 3. But from that juncture onward, it definitely did become Jason. So I mean, I don't know if it would have been better. Like Jenny's obviously my favorite.
Of course, me too.
But there's also a novelty that I appreciate about each one of them, just like only kind of like representing their one movie, and with like part 2 like probably being my favorite. We'll see how I feel after we do the next Friday the 13th. But I'm glad that like like maybe that's just why she's that. If I really like that one, it's probably because of her. So it would make sense for my favorite Friday girl to be in my favorite Friday movie, perhaps. But if that was if it was a thing where she just kind of kept coming back and back again, it might have just taken away the what I loved about her in that movie. So you never know.
Yeah. Well, we might have gotten an on-screen kill if she decided she wanted to leave at some point too. But she, I like that I've seen in multiple interviews that she's given that like there is a part of her now that like in retrospect looks back and thinks like at the time I wanted to do new things and I thought I had like I had all these doors opening to me. I thought they that they were just going to keep opening, and after a while it's harder to find stuff. And in retrospect, I probably should have stayed and just done the movie and had a great time. And I'm like, oh, if you would have had a great time, that would have been everything, you know.
Yeah.
But then you can't know for sure whether she would have. I would hope that she would
maybe
just be infectious on a set and just make everybody have a great time. But
maybe it was she was just like kind of correlating it to Adrian's experience going from 1 to 2, because she didn't have. I mean, she was going through like different things in her life with her stalker and all that. But maybe she just did see it as like, oh well, am I coming back just to get killed off? And is is the mood on the set not going to be, congenial, or because apparently it wasn't all that great on the set of 2. But I don't know. I don't like the sound of the premise of just like the facility or whatever. Like it could have gone in so many different directions, and I feel like that might have, depending on what the facility was, like that might have been something that then came back into play in 5, because I feel like they, whether they knew it or not, like they wanted to center these movies around Crystal Lake and kind of keep it in the woodsy sort of area there. So you never know. But I mean, I'm happy for the Friday the 13th Part 3 that we got. But it still could have been a lot better.
This is as far as my own ranking for a while. For a while, just in terms of like my own selfish enjoyment. I think Part 3 surpassed 1. I don't think it does anymore. I think my ranking so far of the 3 that we've watched would go Part 2 at the top, Part 1 below that, and Part 3 below that.
And then Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, and we watched Freddy vs. Jason too. So, would I put Freddy vs. Jason under this? I don't know. I'll have to consider it. I'll get back to you.
I would say I would say 2, 1, 3, and there's going to be a lot more in between that. Freddy vs. Jason, of the ones that we've covered so far on the podcast, obviously. But yeah, because like Part 1, it's like it's very, even like for Part 3, it's antiquated and it's slow, and there's a lot, like Alice making tea and all that stuff. But I mean, like the fireworks that is Betsy Palmer when she comes on, and like that 13-minute span like just makes the movie at that point. So it's just like there's really you have to look at these movies, and we always talk about this, like we have to watch them through the perspective of like when they came out. And it's not always easy to do that, but I mean, this is like, these movies I've been watching for over 20 years now. So they were already almost 20 years old when I started to watch them, and now they're 40 years old plus. So, I mean, you just gotta take them for the year they came out. And I think that's the best way to enjoy some of them.
Yeah, definitely an atmospheric change here. I feel like, and I don't want to show my hand too much, but I mean, I feel like with the next film, and we'll get into that when we do the pod, but I feel like with the next one, they kind of course corrected just in terms of atmosphere alone, like in a lot of ways, but even just atmosphere alone, I feel like 4 is even more closely linked with 1 and 2 than 3 is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, like I said at the beginning, like 3 of the first 5, because I think that the first 5 are they're tonally consistent, because Jason Lives changes all that. So like of the first 5, 3 is my least favorite. But there's definitely, they course correct it. I mean, I feel even like the gore effects on their own, or just like the Tom Savini of it all being in the final chapter, because I don't think he did Part 2. He did the first one and 4. But Part 2 is not lacking in any regard for that, like it is here. And the tone, the atmosphere. I mean, Part 4, they're still shooting on the West Coast, but it definitely felt more. It felt more like East Coast than we'll say Part 3 felt.
Yeah, and
East
less
Coast.
constructed. It felt like, no, that's a house, that's a house. This is the lake looks like an actual lake.
Yeah.
They didn't return to the Valencia site and get everybody to swim in the murky water. So that, things like that make all the difference as far as atmosphere. So
Yeah.
but I'd still, I think sits cut snugly probably in the middle towards the top of my rankings. We'll see. I don't know. I'm having fun making my way through the franchise.
That's what I love about doing like these rewatches through the podcast, because it's going to take us a while to get through them, because how many Friday the 13th are we unless they like announce a new movie or the show comes out or whatever, and we're just like, okay, we just got to like quickly blast through them, which I don't even know if I'd want to, because I'm enjoying this. I love taking a while, because actually on the old podcast we did each one like subsequently
chronologically,
week after week, and it got to, I think, like by the time we got halfway through, we felt the fatigue, because it's like, especially when you're so when you're so close together with each one of them, and you're getting to some of the not as good entries, you're just dreading it, and it doesn't feel fun. Whereas I feel like if we put space between it, and then we get to like a Jason Takes Manhattan, there might be, it'll give us a different perspective of seeing it, or just we might even enjoy it more, or just like enjoy the things that are good about it without kind of being biased because it's like, well, we did a better one last week.
You're right. No, we also we could even orchestrate it if we want. Like, okay, let's watch a really bad movie before we watch Jason Takes Manhattan. So at least with all of its flaws, like, we'll have an upswing.
Well,
let's find a movie worse.
You just watched Jason Goes to Hell. I saw your Letterboxd and Instagram.
Because it's at the bottom of my original ranking, and I want to reevaluate it, and the only way I can do that is to kind of watch it as I rank and go, well, is this one better than the last one? And it's going to be interesting to see if there's some shifts. Yeah.
So that's how you kind of got your perspective of part 3 here.
I had a lot more fun watching it because I actually watched it. I didn't watch a lot of Jason Goes to Hell. I could not keep my hands off my phone. I kept reaching for it, and I had to keep putting it down going, I'm supposed to be watching this movie, and then the movie wouldn't help me. So I would just reach for my phone again. I think I may have to get a hold for our pod when we finally cover it. I may have to get a hold of the old DVD with the director's cut on it, just so I can see.
Isn't that just like readily available anywhere? How are you watching it?
I'm watching it on Blu-ray, but the Blu-ray only has the R-rated version, which is, exactly.
That's so weird.
I know. Well, doesn't the box set only have the R-rated version of Jason Goes to Hell also?
No, I believe it has.
I mean, your box set?
No, it has both.
Okay, I heard it didn't. All right. I heard from different people.
I don't know. I don't know, don't care. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got six more Friday the 13th in a calendar span to get through before we even get to Jason Goes to Hell. But
absolutely.
But yeah, I feel like we're like missing so much. Like there's so much about this movie that I want to mention that I can't even think about like at the moment. But that's the thing. Like so much of this movie just feels like it's just going through like scene to scene of just the whatever little joke or gag that they have or 3D gimmick setup. One thing that I noticed was how early on Chris and Rick leave and drive off, because I was just like, oh, they really don't spend any time with these people. They're gonna come back and everyone's gonna be dead. Oh, one thing that I don't like with this one, not that I don't like it because it's different. It's like it has its own distinct flavor. Is that I don't love that it's a wind storm rather than a thunderstorm at the end.
Yeah.
It feels kind of cheap.
Oh, God. I mean, the only thing I like about the fact that it's a windstorm is when Chile is running. Oh my god. Oh my god. And she's trying to get out of the cabin and the door blows open. And she's like, oh! And she walks into her own doom.
She doesn't even
won't exit a door.
Yeah, she basically walks into that poker.
Yeah, right? So there's that. I mean, what else is there to talk about in this movie? That's the thing. Is like it's probably more fun to sit and just watch it. I think I probably might have had even more fun had I watched it with someone as opposed to just kind of sitting there, you know, with myself. But
I don't. That's the thing. Like I don't like you know we can watch bad movies and we can talk about bad movies and have a really good time. Talking smack about bad movies, and I feel like even the bad things in this movie, I don't get any pleasure from just being like, well, that was shitty, you know, like because I do love this movie, and I wish that, and like you said, it does fall higher up, but you know, there's I just wish that I had nicer things to say about it. I wish that there's more that I could get out of it than just what it is.
Yeah, also, but sometimes screenings are pendulous. The last time I saw this, I think I was much more kind of like on board. Even with the stuff that, you know, I criticized, I could be a little more but I've been very busy lately, so watching this movie and then having to talk about it, I'm just kind of like, okay, listen.
I guess that's where you have to watch it in 3D to get the optimal experience out of it.
Well, and the first time I tried to watch it in 3D, I did watch it with the paper glasses because the tin, the old, you know, collector's edition of the franchise, came with, you know, the red and blue whatevers. And so I wore the paper glasses, and you get everything looks, you know, like one of three primary colors. It's either red or blue or yellow, and it's all jumping out at you. And I remember the first time I saw it, I got nauseous. I had to take them off. And I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. And then I think a few months went by, and I thought, you know what, I'll give it another shot. And I don't know what was wrong with me the first time. I was fine. I had a great time. I screened it for my mother the one time that she watched it, and we watched it in 3D, and we had a great time. So, maybe next time I watch it, I'll try 3D again and eat some popcorn.
It's so funny to me because, like, 3D... Like, when movies come out, I will try to avoid any sort of like 3D release of it because I just find that so nauseating. No, like actually like watching the movie with the 3D glasses, like when Scream 6 came out, most of the showings were just in 3D. Like I wanted to just see it in regular, like it's not a movie that I need to see in 3D. Like I forgot that it was even in 3D until I just started speaking in this sentence. But I don't want to see movies in 3D. I will avoid it. And it was funny because like 1982 is really like the year that 3D came back, because I think before that it was like the 50s with like, you know, like House of Wax and stuff
the Blob
like that.
and stuff like
and
that.
Then so like 1982 really was like, you know, they're just like, we're doing 3D, it's coming back in a big way, and it didn't really last very long. But it, you know, it just seemed to be like movies that came out around that time, which is interesting. Kind of was like always the third movie, like Jaws 3D. And I was thinking, like, what would Season of the Witch have been like in 3D? Do you think that would have enhanced the experience, or do you think it would have made it worse?
I mean, you just saying that is like candy on Halloween night to me.
Yeah.
Like that sounds like fun.
But
I would totally do that.
It would have been fun, but I was thinking about it too, because like I think what is so great about that movie, and not to like stray into other movies too much here, is just like Dean Cundy's cinematography, and I feel like a lot of that would be lost with like a 3D camera used instead. So I'm
also
happy for the Season of the Witch that we got.
Also, like a little apples oranges comparison here, like just like again atmosphere of that movie, even with, you know, the seedy motel and the, you know, the you know, we'll cover it when we talk about it. But the with all of the aspects of it that make it kind of unsavory, it's not as unsavory to me as like the unsavory parts of this movie. Like I'd rather live in the world of Season of the Witch than the world of Friday the 13th Part 3D. Part 3, you know.
Yeah. Part 3D. Yeah.
There are posters that say Part 3D.
So. No, it's. I mean, this one's. Well, this on the vinyl says Friday the 13th Part 3 3D.
Nice.
But some versions, I guess, like, well, in the movie when the titles come up, it's Part 3 Roman numerals.
Yeah.
But another advent that was kind of like of this time in 1982 was the Luma crane, which they used for a few shots in this movie as well. I know it's like definitely like in the opening with the convenience store, but that was also used in another 1982 movie that we covered, where we talked about that, like how it was used in the movie, which was Tenebrae, Dario Argento's, of the whole scene where it's like the 2-minute shot of just kind of going up the wall of the house, over top the roof, and then down the other side. So I think like this was a very experimental time in cinema where filmmakers were just like, yeah, just throw everything we can at the project and see what works.
Yeah, studios were probably like that too. Just kind of like, we've got these things. Find out if you want to use them, go ahead.
Yeah, and
try
they had
and use them.
The third movie, they'd already made so much money. Sean Cunningham was probably like, yeah, we got the budget, let's do it. You know, bigger is better. We want to be the best part 3 of all the part 3s that are coming out this year. Yeah.
I mean, I can't say I miss 3D, but I mean, every now and then it's a fun thing to indulge in.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel we're winding down. So, do you wanna get to it?
Yeah, let's do the cherry picker.
Let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people. On purpose.
Cherry on top.
I mean, Shelly. No, Vera Sanchez.
But okay, and I don't know, like, because we don't have like specific rules for the cherry on top, because I do like Vera, but I feel like just like the underutilization of her, and then she's probably gonna get it. But there was a scene like when they come back from the store and she's just sort of, whatever the exchange is when like Shelly takes out the money, he's just like, oh yeah, we ran into a little accident. Like she's just like, oh yeah, sorry, but it wasn't my fault. And it's just like, but that was just like, take some accountability. I don't know. It's not her. It was the writing of the characters and stuff, but I was just kind of like put off by that. But I was going to say, like, when I think of this movie, the characters that stand out to me are the biker gang. So I would just throw it out there for, just a trio of the cherry picker, or the cherry on top.
Oh my God. I can't believe that you would put, oh, this feels good, over this sweet Vera looking through Shelly's wallet. Or like I said, like you. But like, not I said, when you act like a jerk.
Like I said, they probably won't get it. I agree, Vera. But they are what I think of when I think of Friday the 13th Part 3. They're the most the most fun part of this movie.
They have I think Ali has the least lines, or the least noises that he makes. So I tend to think of his image more than I think of anything. But I think about Fox's lines a lot. Yeah. Just like of the, may I have the wallet, please? And all that. And oh, this feels good. And I also just think about like Loco going, Roof! I don't even. I the only thing I know is I think it's like when they're siphoning the gas and he's trying to call Ali, maybe.
Yeah, it's like his signal. It's like coast is clear. Let's go.
Stupid, but memorable.
Yeah.
You know what? That should be the tagline for this movie: stupid but memorable.
Yeah.
So, but well, I'm game for whatever.
Well, no, well, I agree. It's Vera.
Okay, good.
Vera Sanchez.
Yay!
So, last week on the Cherry Picker, we asked you who deserves to die the most in Saw, the original. Mm-hmm. I nominated Zepp Hindle. You nominated Detective David Tapp. Mm-hmm. Across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote was 1,047 for Zepp versus 127 for Tapp.
Okay.
Yeah.
I concede.
I was shocked because it was just like I even before, because I always forget to tally up the scores until like right before we're ready to record this one.
Of course.
And I looked at the YouTube. I'm like, wow, 1,000 votes just on YouTube alone. And it was like 91% for Zepp and 9% for Tap. And I was like,
it makes sense to me.
It's easy math to figure out, but I was like, wow, that's
I think
a
he would have
lot,
been my first choice too. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah. Well, let's see what everyone else has to say about
Wait.
this little game that we play every week. Crazy Craft. This be interesting to hear about David Tapp. Sucked says Edward had a great case, so I'm going with Danny Glover.
Oh,
P.S.
thanks.
There are quite a few Melrose Place podcasts that are still running at the moment, so it could be quite popular for you guys to do an episode of Melrose Place. And if you do, I'll love you forever. Fingers crossed for anything from season 2. Mancini is a menace.
Yeah.
Were there any like horror specific episodes of Melrose Place? There were ghosts, like the ghost of.
No, totally.
Kristen
there were
Davis,
like horror-esque episodes, but I'm also thinking just like Halloween oriented ones. I think there were, but really what I remember are the Christmas ones most.
Well, wasn't it? Yeah, but there was a Christmas one where it was like people are like listening. They're like, just get to the fucking thing.
Yeah, right.
There was a Christmas episode where Amanda Heather Locklear was like living out the Scrooge.
A Christmas Carol.
Yeah. And it's just like visited by the ghosts of Christmas
That's
past.
the one.
And and there's like
the one.
Yeah, she's just like she was brought to her gravestone.
Yeah.
And then it was but the end of the episode, because she's horrible. For anyone who just has no idea what we're talking about, Amanda is horrible. I mean, I understand her. Yeah. I understand her. But
Scorpio.
Total Scorpio energy, but she's just like, she's awful to everyone. And she owns the building. She runs the ad agency. And she's just a piece of work. And then she has this fucking dream. And she's sort of like turns the things around by the end of the episode. And she's just very generous and charitable. And then by the next episode, she's just back to being a total piece of shit again.
Yeah,
so it's like no lessons learned, nothing. It was like so disingenuous.
Yeah, no, that episode's over.
Yeah. Anyway, tangents over. Tessa Canterbury. Zepp was forced into playing for the stupidest reason Jigsaw could come up with, and not to mention the kick-ass theme that is named after him, so my vote is for Tap.
Okay.
That's true. Zepp's legacy lives on in all of these movies. Slammin' Sammy Joe. We are doing the Saw movies? Hell yeah, I love detective dramas and buddy cop films. Yeah, but who are you picking, Slammin' Sammy?
But thanks.
Stephanie Eileen. Zepp is like a chicken with his head cut off. He's got to die.
Okay.
Amethyst Frost. What?
No, just a chicken with its head cut off. It will die. Go on.
Amethyst Frost. Zepp will run away with this vote, and rightfully so, but I'll go with Eddie and vote for Tap. I'm rewatching the Saw series right now, and I always find the police characters to be the worst part of each Saw movie as they slow the story down for what I call the CSI wannabe nonsense of that era of 2000s media. Saw cops are often very unlikable for how much screen time they occupy, and or they never learn Jigsaw's designs and thus often end up getting themselves and others killed, and that all originated with Tap, so fuck that guy.
Thanks. That's awesome.
Thank you. And Amethyst also created the what would you want to? How would you describe it?
Our tally.
Our tally. It's a. Why am I not thinking of the
spreadsheets?
Spreadsheets. Yes. I don't use spreadsheets enough to remember what a spreadsheet is, but a spreadsheet of all the cherry picker votes and other fun trivia. If you want fun trivia about the podcast, it's on the YouTube page. Like if you go to the About section, you can find the spreadsheet. And Amethyst.
Yeah,
updates
it's continually being updated, and there were fun facts where I was just kind of like, oh wow, first time cherry on top was a repeat, from like one of our Buffy seasons, and I was like, oh my gosh, little fun facts, cool, it made me happy.
Yeah. So I mean, for anyone interested, so thank you for that, Amethyst. Richard Roberts. My vote is for Zepp, horrible weasel of a man, and those horrible bug eyes freak me out. He is an amazing actor, though, and shines in shows like Lost.
Okay.
He was also really snaky in that show, too, if I recall. Dancing cheat code. It's so crazy. Whatever was going to be the next episode, I was going to ask, how come y'all haven't dive any Saw movies yet? Then lucky me, y'all came through. Zepp, he was just creepy and annoying, plus I thought he was the main villain on first watch, so I was happy when he died. Okay. You get to die just for tricking us into thinking that you were the main villain. Michael Begley. Of all the choices in the film, I really didn't think it would have been either of these two. I would have chose Adam for that acting, but out of these guys, I'll go for Zepp.
No.
Grant Dempsey.
Sorry.
Grant Dempsey. I vote for Michael Emerson, or for the namesake of the iconic Hello Zepp track, Death to Tap. Or sorry, I can't vote for Michael Emerson. It's getting late. I can't read. Home Run. Won't choose either. I guess there's a lot of people that wanted Adam dead. Jagger says Zepp. And Blue Box 87 says Zepp, I guess. But my personal choice would be both Adam and Lawrence because of the terrible acting.
Oh,
not Larry, not Carrie Larry always.
It was a tonal choice. he occupied a world of intrigue and espionage. Well, not espionage, but you know what I mean. All right, go on.
He was a British spy.
Yes, he was a British spy.
Piccadilly.
Yeah,
British
Snoresbury's.
Yeah.
The lift. Yeah, Piccadilly. I still think about that.
All right.
Go on.
All right. Friday the 13th, part 3. There's one character who, and like we originated the cherry picker vote when we did the old Friday the 13th, the old podcast when we originally did the Friday the 13th. And I won't say who you nominated, but I'll say the one that I nominated was Chile, soccer mom Chile, because not that I necessarily hate her, but just because I get a satisfaction of when Jason finally puts her out of her misery. And upon like rewatching this, like, yes, I still feel that way. Like I hate her a lot. And when she's finally...
You just said you didn't hate her. You just said you didn't hate her, and now you're saying, I do hate her a lot.
I guess I'm a contrarian.
Go on, sorry.
I still hate her a lot to the point where I'm satisfied when Jason puts her out of her misery.
Okay.
After that scene that she puts on. However, there's just...
Yeah.
She's a character in this movie. She's a character, you know? And I appreciate that. She's part of what makes this movie special for me.
Okay.
And the character who is not really a character, who's just sort of non-character, who's just there, who I found to be particularly boring and kind of an asswipe that I'm going to go for is Rick. Because, like I said, no personality. What is he doing there? He hasn't seen her in 2 years. Mm-hmm. What is his relationship to her anyway? Like I have so many questions and none of it is answered. Yeah. And he's not useful. And he's pushy. And I don't know. Yeah. He's
Rick the prick.
Rick the prick. I don't know. I'm bored by him, so I'm gonna vote for Rick. I'm gonna nominate Rick. And I'll vote for him too, so you should as well.
You listening, not me. But
and you.
Okay, and I'm not going to shock anybody with my choice. I'm just going to say Shelly. Um, because I honestly, I think I crave his death more than any other characters in this movie. I mean, the opening couple is kind of rough, but did they deserve to die? I don't think it's so much they deserve to die, so much as like, well, at least they're not suffering anymore, you know. But Shelley, with the pranks that he's playing, I'm not a person who likes pranks. I am the kind of person where if you play a prank on me and it's bad enough, you're probably not going to be in my life anymore, you know, because you can't be trusted. And and then I'm going to make, you know, and if the door is still open, it's going to be a long time before I trust you again. And it's going to cost you, I don't even know what, you know, like, it's not an attractive quality. I mean, we all remember what I did to Tree's mom in the Happy Death Day pod. So, and that was barely a prank. That was just kind of like some impishness that can have some dire consequences, you know, irresponsibility and recklessness with other people's safety and their hearts. I don't have a tolerance for it. So burn the witch. Burn the witch. Named Shelley. Just get him out of here. Get him out.
Wow. And that was your nomination the last time, and actually, I mean, I'm sure this information is probably on Amethyst's spreadsheet, but when we did that poll, because it was just the Instagram voting at that time, but I think it was like off by one vote that Chile won. Or Chile was voted to die, so it would have been interesting to nominate her again and just see if it had been like very even split again. But there you go. So you have Rick or you have Shelley. So vote your heart, vote your conscience, and you can vote on Instagram. We're at that's my regular one, the Cherry Picker Pod.
We're almost there. We're
almost there.
Stretch,
we're in the home stretch. You could go to Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod. Polls are up there. You can also vote on the YouTube page in the community section. Subscribe to us. And if you are new to the podcast, you can obviously go watch us there if you are listening. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can listen to us as well. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. You can also vote on Patreon if you are supporting there. Once again, we appreciate all of your contributions. And social medias individually, where can the fine people find you, fine person?
Edward is Truth, traditional spelling, one word, on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Letterboxd. How about you, Zach?
Just Cherry? Like no enthusiasm. You can find.
I'm just trying to remember them.
They're also in the descriptions down below. But for anyone listening,
go find us.
Instagram, Retro Bitch Face. My main YouTube channel, Zach Cherry, ZackCherry. Letterboxd, also Zach Cherry. Twitter, Zach Cherry 8. And that's probably
it's not Twitter anymore, isn't it? X now.
Well, I think we still call it Twitter.
Ugh, okay.
Yeah. Find me on X. Yeah, I don't know.
X.
Yeah, because it's not tweets, it's posts now or some bullshit like that. But what we got going on next week?
All right. Is it the one with the
yes?
And he, and then he, but she, and they, and it's ooh, and then but then it's not. Is that it?
Tiff.
Bride of Chucky.
I am rubber.
No, not until next week. Bride of Chucky.
It's Bride of Chucky. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be right back.